Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Seriously in Business podcast. Today I have a very special guest. We talk about two distinct things and they're both wildly important, and you are going to want to hang around to the end where Nikki talks all about websites and the really important things to think about, not just the prettiness of them, but their actual functionality and how they can actually get found on Google, because that's so wildly important and people don't focus on it enough. But Nikki is an incredible pretty much website designer, brand strategist, and business owner. And she first gives us tips. Well, firstly, actually, she shares her incredible business journey and how she's got to where she is today, which is a really cool story. And then Nikki was going to share with us all about how we can market our businesses and message them in a way that's accurate and that's going to attract our audience, and how we can word that well and how we can kind of do the research around that. And then Nikki's going to chat about websites and how we can make sure that getting found on Google, that it's actually performing well, it's speeding, it's going fast enough, and all of those really important, more technical website things. So I'm really excited for this episode. If you don't know Nikki Hamilton is the creative force behind Seedling Digital and Women Wealth WordPress. It's a course. And so she's originally from New Zealand and now on Australia's Gold Coast. Nikki has a diverse background from teaching, corporate marketing to a boutique skincare, which we're going to chat about all three of those different parts of her past in this podcast episode. Nikki's mission is to help businesses to create a strong online presence for increased profitability. Seedling Digital, her Gold Coast agency, excels in crafting distinctive brand identities through WordPress websites that not only captivate but also address business challenges. Through her course, Women Wealth WordPress, Nikki offers a comprehensive e-course for aspiring web developers. She has transformed a job loss during her pregnancy into a successful web development business, earning over $150K in her first year, which is wild. Her course provides technical guidance, business strategies, and a supportive community to empower women in building thriving development studios. So I cannot wait for you to hear Nikki's podcast. Tune on in, listen really, really closely, and you might want to repeat the last section where we chat about websites a couple of times and take a lot of notes. All right, let's dive in. Yay! So, welcome, Nikki, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so stoked to have a chat with you.
I know, it's probably, we met in person for the first time March-ish.
It was a while ago now. Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I was also really excited because obviously we've been following each other on Instagram. I have no idea how we even first met, but
No.
I didn't actually know if you would know me when I saw you in person.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice that you recognized me and it wasn't like this awkward, like, oh, hi, Nikki, I fully
Yeah. Oh no, I was the same. I was like, I saw you across the room. I was like, I've got to go say hi. That was a great event. So yeah, it was nice to meet.
It was nice. And especially as fellow designers, it's also, it's got a special touch to it. Anyway, I digress. I would love to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, which is, what does an average day in your life and business look like? Like, what is the routine and life kind of, how does that all work together with running a business?
Oh, I really don't have any 2 days that look the same. And yeah, they're a bit scattered at the moment. I'm actually trying to kind of work through what that looks like. But I will say I do have a pretty good morning routine, which I'm really, really happy with. And that really helps to set me up for the day. But basically my kids are up kind of any time between 5:30. So I'm straight out of bed with them, kind of getting them dressed and getting them downstairs, serving up breakfast. And then from there, we actually have an au pair. So I feel very privileged to be in this position. But yeah, she is an absolute angel sent from above, and she comes down and kind of sits with the kids and has breakfast with them, gets their bags ready for daycare, and I go to the gym or go for a walk. So this is a very recent thing. It's kind of only the last 3 or 4 weeks that we've really had this. So it's been really amazing because I've been able to like have some time to myself before the day kicks off. And that's been really helping with my mental health and obviously my wellness, being able to exercise and just have some downtime because I have ADHD and I'm autistic, and we think that my oldest son does as well. So it's just really, mornings are quite hard, evenings are quite hard, all times with kids are quite hard. But yeah, it's just been able to really help me start the day off on a really good footing, which has been nice. From there, I get them to daycare, head home, normally shower, quickly make something to eat and get to my desk. So I'm generally at my desk between 9 and 10. I am a bit of a slow starter in that way. I kind of like to have a bit of time. And during that time, I'm normally like making lists about what I need to do for the day. Like that seems to be a good time for me to like think and plan. And then, yeah, at my desk, it's quite a hard one because I work in projects, but I also have so I build websites and design brands for my clients. It depends what's on my web, but I also have an e-course. So I'm normally kind of starting the day by checking my emails, checking in on my course students and responding to them. Catching up on anything in my role as well, because it's tech. There's always kind of, sometimes there's like little fires that you have to put out that need to be kind of dealt with quite quickly. So I try and tackle those small things first and to get myself into the flow. And then generally I try and have like a good solid, couple of hours to work on one of my bigger projects that I'm currently working through, like a creative project. I have a lot of flexibility in my day. I always say like, I don't really adhere to a specific work day because that's just how I like to operate. I like to kind of, have variation in my day and kind of follow my bliss on the day. So if I'm not really feeling creative, I can kind of have some time away. Or, quite often I get my nails done regularly. If I've, been working too much, I'll try and book in a massage. Like I do have quite a bit of flexibility in my days and my weeks, which is awesome. I've also really been trying to make a point of taking a lunch break and actually eating something nourishing and sitting outside in the sun and having a swim. We have a little plunge pool. So that's been really helping me refresh for the afternoon and kind of, keep going. And then generally around 4:35, I'll head off and get my kids, head home. And then the evening chaos ensues. It's like preparing dinner and, bathing, pajamaing, getting them all to bed. My kids do not sleep at all, so it's always a struggle. So by the time they're finally asleep, we're all exhausted and all ready to go to bed kind of by 7:30. But yeah, I think, at the moment I'm really trying to kind of take some downtime and, read a book or something in bed, and that's been really nice. So it's just nonstop from start to finish, as I'm sure will be the same with you.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. There's a few little insights in there that I didn't know about you. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Before we dive into some businessy stuff, I wanted to ask you a bit about your own business journey, because in your bio, it's very interesting. So you pretty much went from teaching to having a boutique skincare business to corporate marketing. How did that journey happen? And then how has that led you to your business now?
Yeah, it's a very hard one. And I think this comes back to the ADHD in me, is that I just get a little bit bored and a little bit like titchy. So straight out of high school, I did a degree in early childhood education, a bachelor's degree. And I did that for a few years before I, kind of went on my big OE. Like I went to Canada and to a little ski town called Fernie. And I spent 3 years there, met my husband there. And while I was there, I kind of started experimenting with making like my own skincare from a brand that I really liked that was quite expensive. So I kind of was trying to replicate it. And I ended up creating this cleanser, which was amazing. And I started giving it to my friends as Christmas presents. And everyone was like, you really need to sell this. So when we moved to Australia together. I just started this business based around that, and then, created more and more products in the line, and just through experimentation and research. And I was making everything myself. I did all the branding and the website and everything myself. And I had quite good success on Instagram. So I had quite a good following. Like I remember it was like 11,000 at the time or something like that. So it was like kind of when Instagram was really kicking off. So it was definitely easier to get followers at that point. But at the same time, that's still like a really decent number. So through my business, I kind of had been, networking, and I met this woman who her business was also a side hustle, and her primary business was in marketing for a financial services company. And there was a role came up within that company, and they were looking for social media marketer who didn't have experience in financial services, who wasn't qualified. And they were looking for that specifically because they thought that that person would be able to really articulate what they do in kind of a way that everyone could understand. So it was just like the perfect opportunity for me. And in my skincare business, I was really at this crossroads of like, okay, do I get an investor? Like I was kind of at this, middle level of, do I scale? Do I wind back? What do I do? Do I get an investor? And I decided if I went back to work, I would kind of pour the money in from working into the business to grow it and scale it with the aim of eventually leaving the job. And as it so happens, as it always does, plans don't always go to plan. And I started that job and I just absolutely loved it. And I really excelled, and I was getting constant promotions, liaising with kind of the executive team and just doing a lot of like really important things within the business and constantly upskilling. I was doing all of these short courses through General Assembly in my spare time, and I just loved the whole thing of it. I was like, this is what I meant to do. So yeah, I was doing like their social media, EDMs, internal comms, like a lot of copywriting and communications, design, like so much. It was so varied. And I guess it's that thing of, in that business, it was like whatever I needed to be at the time. And kind of one of my biggest projects there was being involved in a full website redesign. And along with that, it was, internal stakeholder meetings and meetings with the executive team, and then the people who are in the call center and all of these different people to get kind of buy-in from the business and like figure out what does the website actually need to be, not what does it look like how does it function, how is it best going to serve the customers and all of that type of thing. So that was like a year-long project, and it was like a 600-page website that we, redid completely from scratch and redesigned and everything. And then we rebuilt it and really refined and condensed it. I think we ended up with about 150 pages at the end. So it was really, the focus of it was a lot of user experience and testing, because it was like, what are people coming to the site to do and how can we best allow them to do that? And so even looking now at different banks' websites and stuff, it's I'm really proud of like how it came together, and like actually we really nailed that kind of piece of people being able to find what they're looking for, and like the nav structure and the categorization and the way things are laid out. It was a massive project, but I learned so much from that, and I really loved it. So a while after that, I actually got pregnant, and at 4 months pregnant, I was told that my contract was not going to be renewed. And that was after, 3.5 years, multiple promotions, like no issues ever. And it was just that I was on a contract, and they were able to say, we don't need that contract anymore. We don't need that role anymore. So it was completely legal, but totally dodgy and unfair in my opinion. And so along with that, I left that job, had my baby, and then I was like, well, I want to do my own thing. I don't want to be in that position anymore where someone can just say to me, you don't have a job anymore. Like after 3.5 years, after like, you put your time, so much time and energy into a role in the business. And it's like, at the end of the day, to a company, you're just expendable. And I was like, I'd never wanted to be in that position again. So I started Seedling. So such a journey, but it all led me to where I am, and it's all given me skills to be able to do what I do now. Like I have experience as a small business owner. I have experience as a teacher, so I can communicate what I can do. I have experience in corporate. So one of my last projects was with another financial services company. It was 5 companies combining into one, and they were rebranding. But along with that, each company had a director that needed to have a say in the brand and the website, right? So it was like taking them on the journey to get buy-in of this final product, and they're a regional company. So they're very like, strong in their roots and their history and all of those things. So being able to walk into a meeting and have that meeting with them and, pull the strategy out of them and then compile that into a website and communicate, why certain decisions were made, like that's all come from my entire history. So yeah.
Love it. That's wild. I like nah, cool. That's just such an interesting story. I was like,
yeah.
And so, like all of those skills, as you say, have kind of brought you to kind of bring almost all of that together now in what you do. really strategically, which is so cool. And like I can tell even from reading your bio how good you are at communication, and the kind of the way that you worded different things was like, that's, I can see what she did there. That was really
Yeah.
clever. You're kind of like
Thank you.
pushing towards this and that. And so I'd love to chat about and give our audience some tips around some, I guess, some practical ways that we can, especially as women in business, really clearly communicate, I guess, what we do, what our skills are, and show our value, and create that desire, I guess, almost as well. I know that's a ginormous question, so we can flesh it out for a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think is the first step, maybe, to really creating and wording and communicating what we do really well?
Yeah, I think this is so funny because this is actually something I'm currently going through in my business. I've hired a brand strategist and copywriter to actually do it for me, even though this is something I do for my clients.
Yeah.
So I think there's really power in having an external expert walk you through the process. I think that there's a lot in our businesses we can do ourselves, but I also think that even though we have the strategy in our heads, if we don't put it down on paper, you don't have that to communicate. You don't have that to fall back to. And so like it's really about getting it out of your head and getting it into some sort of brand strategy document, whether you do that yourself. And there's so many, ways that you can kind of look up online how to do it, or do a course to do it yourself, or hire someone. But you really need to get it out of your head and get it into a cohesive and structured and tangible document that like outlines everything, like your vision, values, mission, your points of difference, like the thing that people come to you for, the problems that they have, and how you solve them in comparison to how someone else might solve them, and the points of difference there. And then once you have all of that, I think it just gives you so much confidence. Like you have the things that you know to talk about. So that's just it, just getting it documented. So brand strategy is so important, I think.
Yeah, those are some great, like you just listed so many of those things off in terms of like your vision and like your points of difference and
Yeah.
like all those things. And I think, yeah, you're right. There's such good things to think about. And like half the time they're kind of just floating in our head.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've got zero idea about them because we've never intentionally thought about them. But that idea of getting it out, it doesn't even have to be a pretty document, especially at the start. If you kind of just
Yeah.
want to just jot down like what is, like, why does my business exist? Like, how am I different to other people around me?
Mm.
What are some things that you think people kind of forget when they're doing this kind of thinking and work? And I feel like it'd be so much easier, as you kind of say, to get someone else to come in and do this, because when you're yourself thinking about your business, you're like, this is just the way that I do it. But it could actually
Yeah.
be quite different to how other people
Yeah.
do it. And so having someone, and if you can't afford someone or you don't want to do that just yet, even talking to another business owner and saying,
Yeah, I agree with
can
that.
we just flesh this out together a little bit? Maybe do a bit of a swap together and you listen to them as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts
I
on that?
think it's yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that we kind of have our own biases about what we think our business is, and what we
Yeah.
think that people think our business is or our brand is. And that might not be correct. Like it might be if you're your own target audience. But if you're not, then you actually need to be doing like customer research and thinking, putting yourself in their shoes, and also actually hearing it in their words and their voice, what it actually is that they want from you. Like, so previous customers, why did they choose you? You know, potentially people who are following you who haven't bought from you, why haven't they bought from you? Like as much insight as you can actually get is really, really valuable, because you might actually not know, what it is. And I think that's where a lot of like kind of psychology and marketing comes into it. And that's where people who do this as a job have so much expertise to bring to the table. Whereas, yeah, and I can give you an example of this with the financial services company we recently worked on. The intake questionnaire was very, very my style. It was like luxe, minimalist, the Pinterest board was nudes and beiges and like really clean cut symbols and all of these types of things, like very modern and elegant and luxury, right? And then we had this strategy meeting with all of the directors, and it's like, this is a rural business with like four directors, two of them are male. both of the men are quite a bit older, like their clients are farmers and, all of these types of things. So then it's like, does your vision, like, does what you think actually match up with what your business needs? And how do we find the middle ground where we can create this like beautiful luxe brand that still lands with the people you're actually talking to? And like, how do we pull that together? So that was a really interesting piece, because at the start they were like, no blue, no blue. And then we went through the process and everything's blue.
Love that.
Yeah, and it's not, we actually do have like this beautiful sage and these beautiful this like neutral color and a light blue and a dark blue, but so it's different. It's different to a lot of what's out there. It's not techie feely. It's not like, it's a beautiful brand. I'm really proud of the work. But yeah, it's just really interesting to go through and be like, what you thought you needed at the start was not where we landed. And everyone is so happy with it. Like all of the directors, like I had an email after go live that, the main director that we were kind of like worried about getting it over the line with, he was saying he can't wait to share it with his clients. So
Aww.
yeah.
That's so nice. And yeah, such a great example of, like the way I teach my students often is there's not just one thing to think about when you're putting together a brand. You want to be thinking about like your audience, what you want to be representing and what you want people to feel and what that kind of vibe needs to be, as well as like for personal businesses, like what do you like? Like you're allowed to include that. But you've also got to think about those other areas, and where that overlap happens is where the magic
like
is,
the Venn diagram.
Yeah, exactly. Because like it's not just one area, and like you might focus more on one area depending on like your business, but in most cases it's like, let's find that where these kind of things cross section and where that beauty kind of lies. What are some ways, like what are some, like, I don't like talking to people and I don't like getting feedback, and I don't like it scares me. So what are some ways that we can get to know our audience? Like
I think that's I totally get that. I think that with anything, you really have to look at feedback as being constructive. And I think if you give people the chance to share their voice, in most cases, it will be constructive. And obviously, there's maybe going to be some times where there's an outlier and there's a troll or there's someone who hasn't been really happy. And those are the people that you obviously, if you get that feedback through, you disregard it, or you, you don't send the survey to those people in the first place. But I think with every project or, whatever industry that you're in, if there's clients that you did a really great job on, obviously you want to get their feedback. If there's clients that you didn't do such a great job on, or you did a great job, but there were fall downs within the process, those are also really valuable to get, because they have really good feedback as well. And the thing that you have to just remember is that we're all human. We're all kind of trying to do the best, at each moment. And if you can take that feedback constructively rather than from a negative place and be like, okay, what can I do differently based on this feedback? That's so powerful for your business. And if you look at it like that, like, this is going to help me grow, this is going to help me deliver better in the future. I gave that project my all and I came at it from a good place, and all of these types of things. Like, we all have projects where something, you missed a deadline or whatever it is. It's just life. It happens. Like, I'm a mum of 2 kids. Like, so, but then it's really taking that and looking at it objectively and being like, okay, how can I ensure that doesn't happen? Do I need to actually push out the timeline here, because maybe this timeline isn't realistic for my life at this stage? And I just really need to be like, okay, I can't deliver that phase of the project in 2 weeks. It needs to be 3 or whatever it is. And just communicating it, updating it. Like, business is such a journey. There's always things to tweak and change. Like, so that's kind of how I approach my business. So I'm always trying to improve my process, my communication, my delivery, my skills, like everything. So yeah.
Oh, hello. I'm interrupting this episode super quickly to let you know that we have limited availability to work with the team at White Deer Studio. If you want done for you graphic or brand support, that means doing your graphics for you. Anything from bespoke social media templates to launch graphics or a full branding package, our team are ready to support you. Just head to whitedeer.com.au/design studio to find out more. That's the color white, the animal deer.com.au/design studio to find out more. We cannot wait to work with you. All right, back to the episode. When we are sending out maybe feedback for refining our skills and refining our processes, but also to kind of get some insights into potentially our brand and what our audience actually wants from us, what our customers are actually, how they're seeing our businesses. Do you have any tips of questions we can put in things like surveys to get good answers rather than just fluffy answers?
Yeah, totally. So obviously, I think with any kind of strategic stuff, what you're really looking at is what is the problem and how do I solve that problem? Do the people know what the problem is? If they know what the problem is, how did they learn what the problem is? How can I kind of get them to know that there's a problem? So you need to identify what the problem is in the first place, right? So you can say things like, what were you struggling with when you decided to hire me, or purchase from me, or, and identifying that will really drive so much of your messaging, because, you might find that it's people are saying, oh, I was really burnt out. I was really stressed. I was working around the clock. Like for me, as an example with my course, I talk to designers. And so it's like that, they're working all of the time. And so then for me, I say, okay, well, if you offer WordPress as a service, it's a higher ticket item for a lower requirement of work. But because it's technical and it's hard and it's like a really specialized skill, you get to charge more for that. So you get a bit more of that time back. So what were you struggling with? What made you decide to hire me over someone else? That can give really good insights into how they perceive your brand and what caused them to trust you or overcome that barrier of purchase. Let me think of what else.
Those are really good ones.
Yeah.
I think even just adding those two in can be really powerful to get those proper insights that you can then use for this is not just how I perceive the business. This is the things that I'm actually helping. And this actually is my point of difference. This is why they hired me over someone else.
And it really helped me when I went through that process with my course, because what I found was that people were coming to me for the hard tech stuff, not how to design a website, which is really a lot of my course, but people were coming to me for oh, how do I, set up SSL? How do I set up SMTP? How do I, fix a hack site? How do I fix a critical error? Those hard things that a lot of the other design-based courses don't teach. So that was a big revelation for me. And then the other piece was how do I market my business? How do I build my confidence? How do I price appropriately? And so the actual how to design a website is the smallest part of what I offer, I think, which is so funny.
And so
and it's not what I would have thought.
You wouldn't have known those things if you hadn't have actually asked your people what you're actually why did you do this? And I've got a friend doing your course at the moment. She's loving it. And
awesome.
And she's saying, oh, this, and this. And I was like, oh, that's what you're kind of learning there. I don't know any of those words. So I'm glad you're learning those for you and this stuff.
But that's the thing. There's a lot of people practicing as web devs who don't know these things. And I'm I think that you're doing your clients and yourself just a disservice by not offering the things that you actually need to build a good website, knowing the basics of SEO, integrating with Google Analytics. So if you're just figuring out how to use Elementor or Divi and you can build a beautiful website, awesome. But if the forms don't send to that client when they get an inquiry, it's worthless,
Yeah, that's so true. Okay. That's a great segue actually, because I wanted to chat a bit about websites next, but focusing on us plebs who don't know lots about websites. We're not designing other people's websites. We're just trying to manage our own website, whether we had someone design that or whether we're kind of DIYing that ourselves. What are some things that we really need to be thinking about? I know that you looked at, obviously, when you were helping this financial services company do their website stuff, that was a ginormous process, and you actually thought it wasn't just the design side you were thinking about. There were so many working bits you needed to make sure actually made sense for people. And you just mentioned things like SEO and all those things. What are some, maybe just like a little bit of a list of some things that we should be thinking about as business owners to make sure that we have a website that's actually doing good for our business rather than just in a pretty face?
And allowing people to find you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny because I always say, like, it's so easy to do a good website, but it's simultaneously so hard. So if you Google
Cool.
if you Google your industry, right? Like if you Google hairdresser Gold Coast, like what you will find is that out of the top 10 websites, maybe like one of them will be good. So to actually have a good website, you will stand out miles ahead out of all of those 10 websites. But you have to do the things to get there. So a lot of what I see DIYers and kind of baby web devs missing is like basic SEO and utilizing Google free tools. I think those will be the biggest two things that will make the biggest difference to your website getting found on search engines and actually being seen. So for SEO basics, the things you really want to focus on are optimizing your images. So there's sites like Tiny PNG or Tiny JPG, just Google them, and you can compress your photos and that helps them load quicker. That's one massive thing you can help with your speed. You also want to make sure that every page has a meta description, an H1 title, and then uses H2 and H3 and potentially H4 title tags appropriately in order. So you kind of want to have the H1 at the top, and you need to have like keywords associated with what that page is about in the H1 title. So quite often what I see with designers is that they set their design styles and then they use the title tags based on where they want that design to sit rather than where that H1 is meant to sit on the page, which is the top, if that makes sense. So they might use that H1 title tag as like a quote down the page, like a pull-out quote that they want to stand out. And that's where kind of some of the limitations with DIY platforms like Squarespace and Wix come into play, is that you can't really have, a quote. You only have like a limited amount of styles, whereas like in WordPress, what I build, I can use the H1 style, but I can use the H1 tag at the top of the page appropriately, if that makes sense. And I can still use the style elsewhere. Depends how you set it up. So that's a big one. Adding meta descriptions to every page, which is basically like, I think you get 160 characters, and it's basically a summary of what that page is. Use some keywords. The keywords should also appear in the title tags and in the body copy, and then that will tell Google this page is about this, and that will help it rank high on Google, but it will also encourage people to click on it if it has a good description and kind of gives them a snapshot of what they'll find on that page. And then image alt tags as well. So, when you upload your image, don't just upload them as JGF 123XY. You need to label them as what they are, as in a descriptive way. And that helps with people who are using screen readers for accessibility, but it also helps Google, again, reinforce what's on that page and what that page is about. So it helps that page get found. So those are kind of the basic SEO things. Obviously, with the image optimization, we're kind of talking about speed. So really good hosting and also using something like Cloudflare or WP Rocket to help speed up your site and improve the load times. That will really help with SEO. And then the other thing is like utilizing free Google tools. So Google Analytics to check on your data and be like, okay, I have a really high bounce rate on that page. Like maybe I need to add at the bottom a link to another page or a link to contact me or whatever it is to kind of keep that flow going and make the most of the traffic that's coming to your site. So data is a brilliant way to do that. And again, it's free. And then Google Search Console and Bing Search Console. So this is a massive, massive one that I see people miss. So I will give you a tip right now. If you go to Google and you type in your business name, if you have a website with more than one page, like multiple pages, and you're only getting your homepage come up on Google, you have not submitted your site to Google Search Console. So what you should be seeing is your homepage, your about page, your services page, your blog, like kind of, anywhere between 4 and 6 links, that's telling me that you have submitted it to Search Console. And, you know, if you can't even find your business, how are other people going to find your business? So what you really want to do is like dominate that top section. So ideally you should have your website. On the right hand side, you should have your Google My Business profile, which I'll talk about in a second. Under that, you should have, you know, your Facebook link, your LinkedIn link, maybe some photos that have been tagged with your business. And so you can Google, if you try mine, Seedling Digital, you'll see what I mean. And then, you know, try some others in your area and see what comes up. So again, Search Console is quite a tricky, well, it's not that tricky, but it's, you know, one of those things that if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. I actually saw a reel on it this week and I was like, oh my gosh, have I done that? And I think I might have it. A past version of Jacqui like 5 years ago did something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all like, yeah, there's so many things to know. So this is gold. So anyone who's listening to this, just feel free to re-listen to this section of the podcast like 4 times just to kind of take all your notes. Continue.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is, I actually did a workshop on this like recently, and it was like 10 things you need to do to make sure you're getting them. I called it like to make sure your website is working for you when you're not, because I always say it's like your best employee. Like you don't have to be always online, but your website is always online for you. So it's obviously a great investment to have something selling for you, answering questions, building trust, helping people find you when you're not, you know, so it's so valuable. And there's like 10 things I could go through, but the last one I'll tell you is Google My Business. So as I mentioned before, it's free. It's actually called Google Business now. I think they changed it. So basically just search Google Business and you need to sign up, list your business. And what I recommend you do there is complete it to the best of your ability. Like everything it offers you to do, fill it in. Like put your info, put your hours, your phone number, your website, add some photos, send it to clients to get reviews on. Like as much as you can do on that profile will really help your business. And this is one area that I really focused on early in my business. And I was quite strategic with my SEO is I focused on branding, because if people need a brand, they also need a website, whereas most website designers know how to do SEO, right? So website designer is quite a competitive keyword in anything in that realm. So I focused on branding, and I come up like very highly for branding in the Gold Coast. And I've had like a lot of work come through that way. So, you know, utilize keywords that your business can be known for, but again, be strategic about it. And are there any kind of other angles that people might be searching for? And keep it updated. Like Google Business is similar to how you would use like Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. You can also add posts to it, almost as if it was a social media platform. I definitely don't do it as often as I do the other platforms, but you know, every now and then if you have something that's really great, just add it there as well. And you know, it's not that much extra work to post the content somewhere else once you've already created it. So yeah.
Great summary. Thanks for that. I'm about to redesign my own website, which I'm feeling very daunted by. But I think those are some really good reminders of making sure you get all of those little bits and pieces right, because then it will be, as you say, kind of working for you so much better.
Yeah.
When it's not working, rather than just kind of sitting there, and people may or may not be able to find it. Like there's some businesses I Google them. I'm like, I don't even find your website. I know that it exists. I've seen it before, but I literally cannot find it. And that's not ideal. So those things can be so good.
Yeah, totally. And it's one thing that you can put the time in and it will like serve you so far down the track as well. Whereas like ads, if you stop spending the money, that the leads stop coming. Yeah. So SEO is a very, very powerful, and website is a very powerful thing to invest in, I think.
Yeah. That's so amazing. All right. Thank you for all that. If people want to work with you or learn more about what you do, or can we watch a replay of that masterclassy thing you just mentioned about the website stuff? Like, how can we get in touch in your world?
I actually am thinking about just offering it because it was to one of my clients, like that I have a great relationship with. I just said I'd do it for her, but it's obviously built now. So I'm thinking about just offering it, you know, to my clients or to my followers as well. So definitely if you connect with me, you will get notified if I decide to do that. So you can find me on Instagram at Seedling Digital or seedlingdigital.com.au. And my e-course is womenwealthwordpress.com. And that's basically how to build a website, but also how to build a web dev business. So
all the things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Thank you. I'll pop all those links in the show notes and stuff for anyone interested
Amazing.
too.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for joining us today and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, it's been cool to get to know you and the behind the scenes of the business a bit too.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So thank you for joining me for today's episode. I hope you found it so wildly useful and that there's a few different things you can go implement now, whether that's stuff with your Google and business and all of those different words that Nikki used, or whether you're going to do a little bit of customer research and maybe send out some surveys to your past customers to really get inside their heads and make sure you have a really holistic and really great view of your business so you can message it and design it and do all of those things really, really well. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.